Welcome to the Lost and Found podcast. I'm your host, Amanda. Join me each week as I rediscover my life's meaning, my passions, and my place in this world after leaving behind the only dream I've ever known. If you're dealing with self-loss, identity changes, career transitions, or you're still trying to figure out your life's purpose, then you're not alone. Join me. Wanderers are always welcome. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Lost and Found podcast. This is your host, Amanda, and I'm so excited. We have a brand new guest episode for you today. Today's guest embodies the journey from survival to sacred expansion. Michelle Jeovanny is a renowned spiritual life coach, mentor, and entrepreneur who helps people create wealth on every level: spiritual, emotional, physical, energetic, and financial. With over 15 years of experience in leadership, somatic practice, and mysticism, Michelle blends her own grounded strategy with spiritual magic to guide others into freedom, fulfillment, and flow. Michelle's wisdom was earned and not handed down. Her story begins as a runaway teen from a violent home in the Dominican Republic who found herself homeless on the streets in New York City. But through resilience, faith, and her own deep initiation into healing, she has transformed her pain into purpose, reclaiming her power and now helping others do the same. Today, we're going to explore how to turn adversity into abundance, how to live in the ceremony with your life, and how to reconnect with your inner channel of truth and creative power. Michelle's story is one of radical ownership, ancestral healing, and the alchemy that happens when you finally say yes to your own becoming. Please give a warm welcome to Michelle here at the Lost and Found podcast. We're so excited to have you here today.
Thank you so much, Amanda. I'm so excited to be here with you
Yeah.
and your entire audience. Yeah,
it's going to be a good day. For those that don't know, we've been trying to get together for quite a while. So I am super excited to have her here in front of me. And I finally get to pick her brain about all these really cool things that she's doing and helping people with all over the world. So Michelle, like I said, I'd love to take us back to the beginning. You know, you started from what feels like the absolute bottom and clawed your way back up to the top and to a level of success that most people would think, I'm sure your haters probably said, you never would have had. And you have found a way to prove all those doubters wrong. So I'd love it if you could give us a little bit of background into what it is that you've been going through and what happened to you during all that chapter of chaos in your, early teens.
yeah. Thank you so much, Amanda. When I was in Dominican Republic, my mother was dating this man I laugh because his name was Angel, but he was the complete opposite. And in many ways, after you do a lot of work on yourself, you're able to really appreciate those people that had you go through this metamorphosis. At the time, I hated him. He used to physically abuse my mother in very extreme ways. He burned our house down multiple times. And I remember being a speaker, being told you can't say the full extent of your story because it's just non-plausible. People won't believe it. But he burned down our house multiple times, both times during Christmas. And so there was a lot of starting from the rock bottom, even as a teen, to go to these schools without anything, without clothes, hiding everything that was happening at home. For some reason, and I just did a video on this, we're living in a time where our children, ourselves as women, as entrepreneurs, we don't share the full journey. We don't share of everything we're experiencing because somehow we believe this lie that there's a lot of shame that we bring home if we expose everything that's happening. And so as a child, I was living this lie where I was pretending everything was okay in school, but at home it was a nightmare. Every single night he would drink and he would physically abuse her. He would emotionally abuse us to the point where then those bullets started being aimed at us. Literally, he would shoot guns at us and I would hide my siblings in closets. And so there was a lot of growing up fast and cleaning up blood and learning how to drive at 12 years old to find my mom. And so there was a lot of survival, extreme violence, extreme abuse, and normalized it in the sense that there's no 911 in Dominican Republic. There's so much domestic abuse that goes unseen, unheard, unspoken about until the woman is dead. And so I had to grow up fast, and that continued for about 6, 7 years, to the point where as a teenager, you start to rebel. And that's what happened with me. I started to rebel at a very young age, and I developed this spiritual connection to God and to my angels, where I just started to realize my faith got ignited by that situation that was happening at home. And I turned to God at a very young age, where my mom did the opposite. She actually disowned God because of everything that was happening. And so it was really interesting what was happening at home. But I remember starting to rebel at around 15. I started running away from home, to the point where by 17, I ran away permanently. And I came to New York with nothing, no suitcase, no bag, no book bag, no purse, just myself and a photocopy of my birth certificate, because my mom had taken my passport away. And so even the story of like going to this airport and standing up for myself, advocating for myself as an American, as a minor, going through a very extreme situation at home, having to enroll this customs person to let me go with just a photocopy of my birth certificate was huge. At that time, it was unheard of.
It would not happen now with the state of affairs. So my heart is getting so heavy listening to your story, because unfortunately I know that you're not the only case, right? Like, that's happened to so many people, and you had the bravery to go, or the wherewithal at least as well, to go, I have to get out of here, because this is not what's meant for me. And I apologize. I interrupted your story, but
No, no, this is,
it's what you've accomplished so far is absolutely incredible, and I
thank you.
appreciate you sharing.
Thank you. Yeah. So I came to New York and I was homeless for a few months, and college was not at the top of the mind. When you're in survival, figuring out how to make money to eat,
Yeah.
it's the last thing in your mind. But I remember being at a homeless shelter checking, because at that time they would allot you like 10, 15 minutes on computers. And I was checking my internet, my email at the time. I believe it was High Five. I don't even think people use that
May not be
anymore.
around, yeah.
But I saw these messages from classmates, and they were all saying, let's go to New York. We're going to college in New York. And in that moment, and I get emotional even now, I thought I was forgotten. I thought I was all alone. I was deep in survival. I was begging for money in the streets. I was getting creative on how to sleep in certain places to get away from the cold. As an island girl, I never experienced winter. So that was just the biggest threat, like sleeping outside. Hunger, for some reason, I trained my body to not be hungry. And when I would find food, it was like a blessing. But when I saw those messages, I just remember feeling like, "Oh, I'm not forgotten." I wasn't forgotten. And so I just broke down in tears. And I remember the coordinator of the homeless shelter took interest in me. She was like, wait a minute, you know multiple languages, you know bookkeeping, you know finance. How do you even know all this stuff? You don't belong here. And I look at that chapter, Amanda, as one of the biggest trainings that Spirit God put me through, because I was just in this humbleness of it all, and listening and seeing so many different people in the homeless shelters, homeless people in the streets, just seeing and listening to their stories. Every journey was so unique, and yet there were people that had lost hope, that were completely disconnected to any possibility. And here I am, a 17-year-old that looked like she was 12, just like, no, we can't end here. Our story begins. And so I was already motivating without even knowing coaching existed. But this is where all the angels came in, because this lady helped me create my resume. And because she did that for me, I was then in college creating resumes for people. And she got me like my interview clothes to get me on these jobs. And because of her, whatever interest she took on me, I started to fundraise for women that were homeless to get them their suits and their resumes. And so I don't even know if this woman knows this to this day, the part that she played in my life. And my friends got all my transcripts, sent it to the college that they were applying to. At that time, it was Manhattanville College, and they got me in. I remember the dean calling me at the homeless shelter saying, I can get you in as early as May. Can you hang in there? And that was a few months away. And I was like, yes. And that was it. There was no Who are you? Where are you from? And so college became my first safe haven. That was a place where I was safe. But when you grow up with so much terror,
Yeah.
safety feels foreign. It feels threatening. You're waiting for the shoe to drop. You're causing sabotage just because chaos is normal to you. And so I had to literally learn to unpack the invisible suitcases that I brought with me and do a lot of trauma work and deep healing work. And a lot of the trauma work starts in relationship. You start to let people in. It was my roommates. It was my first real boyfriend that I chose. And I say that because when you go through a lot of trauma, you find yourself in relationships that you didn't even agree to. All of a sudden, there was a situation, and now I'm in a relationship that I didn't even want to be in. And so a lot of the deep work reveals itself in relationships. And that's when the real work begins.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a lot to expect out of a 17, 18-year-old person to go, oh, yeah, by the way, not only have you made it through survival mode, you now have to watch out for everybody else that's going to take advantage of the fact that you were in or could still be in survival mode. And you're not to say that you're naive now, but just typically when you're that young, you are naive and you are in a really big city and you don't have a lot of family or friends around you yet to help be your support system. The wrong people will find a way to take advantage of that.
Exactly.
Was there a specific turning point, maybe either during or after college, where you finally did start to realize I am meant for something greater? I do need to handle these demons before I can like level up to whatever is going to become my future self.
Yeah, thank you for asking that. I feel like the writing was on the wall from the very beginning, but around that time where they say the Saturn returns,
Oh,
around
yeah.
27.
Yeah. I'm very familiar. I remember what is it, 27 to 31 or something like
Yeah.
that. Yeah. The whole beginning of this podcast comes from those years, so
Really?
oh, yeah. I spent 10 years working for the federal government. My last job was with the FBI, and at 31, I had, like, an existential crisis and decided I needed to kinda make a lot of changes in my life to finally really be happy because I was going down a path that I didn't like, and it started to challenge my integrity and my own ethics, and I walked away from it, but I felt like I completely lost my identity. I needed an outlet because I was no longer the agent, the analyst, the fancy one in the family, and not that you need to be, but it takes a lot of unpacking to get to the, like, what is it about yourself that's hurting you so much? And, I started the podcast to help me deal with that, so I just started talking about what was going on with me. Now that
Okay, we gotta
I
get you
understand
on
that,
our podcast.
yeah, it's a long podcast, but I've talked to so many other guests now that are aware of what that is. I don't know much about astrology, but I've had several of them mention the Saturn return, and I'm like, wow, 27 to 31 really was like a very tumultuous time in my life. But I just looked right past it because I'm like, you're gonna push through. You're the strong one. Doesn't matter. It's not real. Keep going. Blah blah blah. And then finally, I got fed up and go, there's no way. There's no way that this is not a coincidence anymore. So.
I love it. Well, that's exactly what happened to me.
Mm.
Everything fell. I was chasing significance and wanting to become somebody at all costs to prove to my mom, to prove to my family, to prove to myself. And it was all those inner demons that you're chasing this level of certainty and significance and you're trying to control everything. But what ended up happening for me, and similar to you, I was after that those jobs that were very prestigious. And so
Yeah.
I didn't want to graduate from college because it was my first safe haven, so I kept adding majors. I ended up finally graduating with a triple major and a double minor.
That's awesome.
I literally did apply to the CIA, the FBI, like DEA. I wanted the job that had a badge and could promise me a way to make a difference because that's what I was really after.
Yeah.
I landed in Wall Street and I was a financial surveillance for a stock exchange, and it was beautiful until it wasn't. I was miserable. It was like the biggest cage that I put myself into. And I started to rebel in the old ways that I knew, partying, doing drugs. And before you know it, 27 came through. The Saturn return was just beginning. And my long term boyfriend, we broke up. My job, I decided to quit. I got laid off by choice during the recession of 2008. And coaching just landed on my my lap. I had no idea that this was a career, but when I started pursuing it, a lot of my friends from college were like, Michelle,
Mhm.
this is what you always were doing. You didn't know that there was a title, but you were always coaching us.
Yeah.
And so there was just so much coming alive for me then. And what ended up happening for me, Amanda, is that I saw a lot of the red tape, the politics behind the scenes of people coaching it but not truly living it, trainers advocating and teaching things that they weren't really living in their life.
Mm.
And I feel like I had the privilege of being able to witness the behind the scenes, which has always been my gift. And I remember just telling myself, like, I do not want to be a broke coach or a broke facilitator. I don't want to live out of alignment or live out of integrity. I want to be able to, similar to my mom, be an entrepreneur, have multiple businesses, and create a future for me that is super diversified.
Mhm.
And if anything happens to this industry, I have this one. And so I met my husband right around the same time. And at first, we were really great friends and we started a business together and we just became inseparable. And then we started dating, and the rest is history.
Yeah.
But even that marriage, my partnership with my husband became one of my greatest teachers because, again, a lot of our wounds are mirrored in our partnerships, in our marriage. And a lot of women don't speak about this enough. The fires that we go through in marriages and learning how to choose ourselves while honoring our husbands and this partnership that we're cultivating. We hide a lot of the contrast, a lot of the insecurities that surface. He has a larger than life personality, and living as a woman entrepreneur in an industry, in a world that's very male oriented, I had to learn how to speak for myself and advocate for myself and learn to take up space and not be competitive with him, but use that as fertilizer to really
Yeah.
become my best self. And so many learning curves, so many breakdowns. It wasn't just one rock bottom, it was many. And I feel like that's the journey of a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of people that have big missions on their heart. We're learning to innovate and recreate ourselves and be the best version of ourselves while having God at the center of it all.
Right. Yeah. And that sounds like you found really the right person. You found a teammate, a good partner that could be there with you. And I'm assuming he did eventually find out like your whole story and the fact that you could trust him to hold that space and allow you to be exactly who you are, right? And help him grow those businesses together. Like I think that's just amazing because it's not always common anymore that you can find someone that wants to do that with you or that is supportive in the same like level with you, right? Or like who's willing to shift the work. Like maybe you're high, right? You're doing the 80% because he can only give 20 and then like vice versa. But you guys seem to have a really
We
good
had
solid
seasons.
partnership.
Yeah, we had seasons of both, and I want to
Right.
be really transparent. We had to both really mature
Mhm.
because there were a lot of mother wounds and father wounds playing out in our marriage on both sides. And so we had to really burn down our first marriage and get really busy with ourselves individually to do the deep work to be able to hold and sustain and then grow what we wanted to grow.
Yeah. Well, I know healing and the ancestral trauma is a really huge part of your work. So how did you realize that those specific wounds were still impacting your life and what was your first step in breaking those cycles?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. So, the ancestral healing part of my work came in through my fertility grief. So, I really, around 36, I wanted to have a baby. I was obsessed. And it wasn't in the cards for me. God had different plans. And so that grief took me to my knees. And I didn't know what surrender was until you're 7 years deep into fertility treatments. Every year was like layers stripping me away from my micromanager, super controlling. And before I know it, I hit that moment of like just complete let go. And what I realized was that a lot of the patterns that I had been experiencing had been repeated, whether it was through my grandmother who experienced infidelity, whether it was from my mom who experienced multiple divorces, who experienced a lot of conflict with her partnership. And I started to notice some common themes. And even in me sharing my work, there was a lot of like launches that I sabotaged because I was afraid of being seen. There was a lot of chaos that I created to avoid leaning in and being fully seen in my medicine. And so I started to notice these patterns, and spirit was just guiding me through this book I was writing. And unbeknownst to me, the book that I was writing was about 3 generations that were breaking free from these ancestral patterns. And so that led me down this rabbit hole in really reclaiming something that once I dived in, Amanda, it felt second nature. It felt like I had been doing this for years.
Yeah.
If you ever come to one of my retreats, I mean, we go so deep with these ancestral patterns. And it was like I was swimming in this from day one. It just was very second nature, very intuitively led. There are patterns that when you start to understand, let's say you call in a lot of money and you're not able to hold it. Let's say you call in an amazing lover, but then you start sabotaging it. You start to bicker about things that 5 years from now, no one's going to care about. But you make it so big that you start to give away and leak so much energy in it, so much power in that. And so when you start looking at the dynamics playing out in your finances, in your purpose, in your relationships, you really start to see these patterns play out. And most of these patterns are ancestral,
Mhm.
especially when it comes to our wealth, to our voice, to our visibility, to us allowing ourselves to fully receive and feel the love. That's all ancestral.
Oh my gosh, that's layered upon layered, right? Yeah, you have to dig pretty deep. And in previous interviews, I know you've talked about walking forward in blind faith. That can be really difficult. So I'm assuming maybe during your retreats, you probably talk about that with your clients. That if you surrender into the thing that's scaring you the most, that's the thing that's actually going to give you the freedom you've always desired. But you have to get comfortable with the uncomfortable. And that's not always easy to do. So I'm curious if maybe you could share how walking in blind faith for you, what did that look like in your dark moments? And how did you know that you were supposed to keep going when there was no clear path for you?
Yeah, lots of prayer and intention. Your relationship with Creator is the one thing that will support you in creating a very solid relationship with the unknown, with uncertainty.
Okay.
You know, we're living in a world where our economy is uncertain, our relationships are uncertain, even marriage. There's so much divorce.
Yeah. You're,
And so it's so important to develop a deep trust in the divine and a deep trust out of that relationship with the divine in the uncertainty. Because when you're moving in a path that's never been walked before, and if you think about it, we're so privileged. We're living on the edge of what our parents sacrificed so much for. And we've normalized it, where it's like, here we are, you and I on Riverside talking, having this beautiful conversation where women would have been lynched for. They would have been burned at the stake for. And so I firmly believe that when you lock in and you really get clear on what are your deepest desires that are rooted in fulfillment, when you define success for yourself, when you actually get clear on what are your values, what actually has you come alive, and then parallel to that, make a list of everything that terrifies you.
yeah. It's a
That's
long
the game.
list. Sometimes, some days there's nothing on it, right? Some days I'm like, I'm a bad bitch. I can do this. I can do anything. And then other days you're like, oh no, think here. Yeah. But
That's the
I
game.
like that. I like that. That's how you learn, right? You ingrain it or learn a new skill. You say it, you act it out, you write it down, or you memorize it, whatever it is, to really kind of manifest it for yourself. But I know the opposite is also true when you're trying to release something. You say it, you write it down, you get it out of you, and then like burn that list or burn that fear that you have, kind of like the metaphor for just letting go of what's holding you down. I like that. I like that you offer that for your clients to try and do that.
Yeah. I feel like the more we orient towards vision and desires as women,
Hmm.
that's the secret to our fulfillment, our freedom, our liberation, you name it, our expansion, when we're able to run towards the things that really excite us. And there's this programming now where women are so busy.
Yeah.
And oftentimes that busy is just another form of protecting ourselves, another form of avoiding the very things that we know we should be doing. creating space for rest, creating space for us to actually listen to ourselves. Those are the things that we're avoiding by staying super busy.
Yeah. Well, for somebody that is either actively trying to avoid that internal discussion with themselves, or they just already feel disconnected from their body and their intuition, what would you say to somebody that needs to reconnect? Where should they begin?
Let go of the phone.
Mm,
Number one, let go of the phone. I'm not passing judgment. I get it. I've done it. We've all done it. If you are at that crackhead level where you cannot, literally create a game for yourself, create something that will have you move away from that trap. The moment you open up your phone, and if it's the first thing you look at when you wake up, you are outsourcing your intuition. You are outsourcing one of your most precious times for you to actually go inward. And so our energy is the strategy of the future. It is the currency of today. Your energy, your focus, your discipline. But your frequency is the product of your inner alignment, your integrity. And integrity is all the things that you're doing and that you know you should not be doing, following through in yourself, but also how busy are you that you're avoiding the spaces that actually integrate you, right? Like being in nature, having that cup of coffee with yourself, where you're being with yourself, where you're actually listening to yourself. The other thing is nutrition and movement are so key. I know that it sounds like redundant to say this, but if you're waking up and a coffee is the first thing that you drink, it is another thing that you are extracting from yourself. You're extracting your water, you're extracting, and coffee darkens your aura. On a
did not.
spiritual level,
Yeah,
if that's the
never thought
first
about it that
thing,
way.
if it's the first thing you drink, you're not communing with your sacred frequency, with you.
Interesting. I've never thought about it like that. To go down that rabbit hole a little deeper, because I'm
Yeah,
curious, what does your morning routine look like when you're trying to connect with your energetic frequency or your somatic skills as a mystic and a healer? What does your particular routine look like then if you're not
yeah.
coffee?
So my routine is very different because I love newness. I love the just to feel like I'm doing something different every day. But if I'm in a funk, I will literally not use my phone. My phone will be either in the office or on the other side of the bed on my husband's side. I will wake up in silence. I'll go and sit by my altar. I'll sit in a quiet space. I'll go and just be in silence, be with myself, be in stillness. And my goal is to breathe and bring a very quiet stillness into my body, where I'm scanning my body and I'm bringing breath into every part of my body. And I'm allowing myself to relax. And the mind will be very active the first few minutes. But after 15, 20 minutes, it's going to start to experience that deeper relaxation, those alpha waves that I'm speaking about. And from that space, I go into prayer. I'll journal what my ideal day looks like, what I'm calling in. These journal pages, when I'm in a funk, are my conversations with God. This is how I speak to God when I'm really in a funk. And normally I love to either go outside, put my feet on the grass, sit on the grass, look at the sun, gaze. I'll have a conversation with my partner. I'll look at my calendar and I pick three things. And I usually journal this as an agreement with myself. What are some things that I'm out of integrity that I'm going to clean up today? What are some ways that I'm going to take care of myself to really pour into my cup? And what are conversations with sisters or my mom, family, because human connection is so important with those you love, that I can be a contribution to. So I watch my language. I'm not here to complain or talk about how shitty my life is. I'm literally approaching the conversation with questions and curiosity. And what are you up to? And here's what I'm up to. And allow those conversations to be deep connection from a place of service.
Yeah, I like that. And those are all very practical things that you could do. What happens though when it is kind of the opposite? I know that it's a really good idea not to pour negativity on top of negativity, right? So you're not trying to make your friends and family and your deep connections worse by pouring negativity. But if there is ever a day where you do need that support back or you do need the uplifting from your surroundings, how do you ask for that help, or how do you initiate that without like invalidating yourself? Like if you are in a funk and you do feel bad, like you don't want to shove it down either. So what would you do when the opposite is happening to you?
Yeah. So if you need to verbally process, it's so important to not emotionally dump on someone. And so go to someone that you trust will elevate the conversation, will hold you responsible, hear you, support you, validate you, and then also shift the conversation. And if none of your friends or family are skilled in that, you can literally set the parameters like, all right, sis, I'm going to share. I need to just vent. But after the 5 minutes, I need you to just ask me, okay, now what? What do you want this to be about? How do you want to transform this into gold? What's the lesson here?
Mm,
What are certain questions that they can repeat back to you that will support you in taking back your power?
I love that. That's really smart. I have a really good friend that I've kept since high school, and we'll talk to each other at least like once a week on the phone and do a walk. We call it walk and talks. And so we'll walk around the neighborhood and we're talking to each other to catch up. And it's difficult, right? Because she has a kid and a husband, and just schedules get packed. But sometimes that's how we start the conversation. Okay, today, are you asking me to listen, or are you asking me to give advice? I'll do either, but what is today about? And most of the time it's for both, but you would always typically initiate. Today, I just need you to listen. I just need someone that I trust to just listen for a little bit. And then that usually helps me the most. As soon as I get it out, I'm like, oh, wow, this sounds way stupider when I say it out loud. Or like you said, right? The initial, when you're having arguments with your husband, you're like, is this going to matter in 5 years? No. Okay. All right. I'm done. Never mind. I'm good. So I think that's
I
good.
love that.
Your suggestions also, they're really healthy. I did notice on your website, you talk a bit about magic, but you spell it differently. You add the K at the end. So for any of the listeners who are here today that feel like they are living more in a mess rather than in their magic, what's one step that they could take today to start shifting their reality towards living with the magic or creating their own magic? What is that like?
I love that you're making this distinction, first of all. You are the second person
Yeah.
in 17 years
You're kidding.
makes that distinction. And I love it for a reason because everything that I put out there is very intentional.
Mhm.
Magic with a K came from this person. His name is Philip Cooper. And he was a really big advocate in distinguishing the magic, MAGIC, which is like pulling the rabbit out of a hat, with MAGICK, which is about transforming, using our consciousness to create what we desire. And there's such a big difference.
Yeah, tell.
So when someone is in their mess, you have to really own that wherever you are in life, you get to take your power back. You get to stand as a creator. You get to really own that you, in some way, somehow, have co created what you have in this moment. Not from a place of being the victim, not from the place of feeling like this is punishment, but saying to yourself, this isn't the end of the story. This is something that's actually awakening a level of awareness that I may have not had. And this new level of awareness that is playing out in this mess is supporting me to be the bridge of where I am to where I want to be. And from that place of power, you can start to ask yourself, okay, what's the lesson here? What can I actually use in this moment to learn from this, to catapult from here? When you start to get curious on, okay, here's what I have. I have a whole bunch of rotten lemons. What can I create with this? What can I do with this? How do I up level from here? How is this the stepping stone, the step in the ladder? When you start to ask spirit and ask God in a form of, you know, God, show me what I can do with this. Show me what we're creating with this. You're going to start to see windows where you saw dead ends.
Mhm.
And one of the things that I would say often, even from college, that some of my friends have quoted me, they're like, one of your most famous sayings was like, don't create dead ends for yourself. There's
Mm.
always a way. There's always something here. And so if you're in a mess, celebrate it. There's something here that's awakening within you. There's a door, there's a window to a higher state of being, a higher level of awareness, a higher frequency. And instead of ruminating in the mess, what's the gift here that I can alchemize? Just that question alone will start opening up possibilities in your mind.
Yeah. Well, it also just starts to help you shift perspective too, right? The purposeful optimism. You're never going to avoid hardship throughout your life, right? That's the human condition. It's the nature of existing here on this plane of earth in this moment in time, that there's going to be lots of transformation you have to either go through or get stuck in, but learning to lean into that and go, okay, this is not happening to me, this is happening for me, and what can come from it. But it's a hard question to ask, but I think a lot of people, if they follow through on answering that question, it'll get easier and easier to ask it over and over again. And then you do wake up that one day and you go, wow, I am living the life that I always thought I would be living. And it's a great feeling. It's hard to get there. I'm not going to say it happens overnight, but you can get there. And I hope anybody listening is taking all of your advice in for word and absorbing that.
If you just dedicate yourself to being 1% better than yesterday,
Mm-hmm.
by the end of the year, it's 3,600% better, 1,600% better. You can be unrecognizable. Your entire life in 1 year can be completely transformed on a quantum level, on a cellular level. I think for me, it's people that, and I blame it on Gen Zs, they just want it easy. They want it overnight. And so they start chasing and avoiding the discomfort because they're trying to get it the easy way. And it doesn't work that way. It's when you run towards what's hard, towards those moments of discomfort, that you quantum leap. You can't get the abs by just staring at your phone and looking at all the abs. You have to go into the gym and do the ab workouts. There's no other way. And building muscle requires pain. It requires discomfort.
Yeah, literally ripping it at the micro level, creating micro tears, allowing them to recover, which builds the mass. Yeah, and eating. You have to eat. That is the number one thing people are not understanding still, especially women. You've got to eat to match that, to gain the muscle mass that you want. Well, I'm glad you brought that up too. I love stepping in as much advice as we can here. We are bordering along a little bit of like the abundance discussion. So I'd love to kind of pivot us just a little bit, because your businesses right now as a speaker and as a one-on-one coach and private consulting and stuff like that, you help people create their own wealth on all types of levels, spiritual, emotional, financial, beyond. But what would you say throughout your work and your experience, what is the biggest misconception people have about abundance?
I really believe that there is this old programming, this illusion that we call scarcity. And people listening that are struggling to pay rent or have financial issues will be so triggered by this. What do you mean? What about everything that I'm going through? And I'm here to tell you, if you are experiencing financial difficulties, is because you've made money a god. You've made that the thing. When in reality, money is a byproduct of who we become. It is a byproduct of our faith and our frequency. Wealth is an internal job. Wealth will require you to really meet and face the parts of you that feel unworthy of the life that you truly desire. And I really believe that wealth is our birthright. We are all born and destined to have every desire that we have on our hearts, or else God wouldn't have placed it in there, in your heart. It's like you really believe that God is going to give you these dreams and then have you be living in mediocrity, financially broke, spiritually broke. It wasn't designed that way. And so a lot of people will focus on chasing money, but not truly becoming a person of value and worth, really owning who they are at the core, that you're here, you are brilliant, you are a genius, you are God in disguise, and you have something to give. Even if you don't aspire to be an entrepreneur, how can you create more value in the jobs that you hold? How can you actually learn and become even more useful, even more valuable? How can you problem solve? In life, the more you're able to problem solve and the bigger problems you solve, the more money you will get paid. And so, where are you not believing in the value that you have? And where are you not actually creating solutions to problems that people are experiencing, whether it's in corporate or entrepreneurship? We're here to problem solve on a personal and professional. And Tony Robbins says this the best. The day that you die is when the problems will end, because we are here to problem solve. till the end.
Yeah, think about it, right? If you never had any problem ever, would it really be that fun? If you're not having an opportunity to learn or practice something, or to fix the joy and the pride that comes from fixing something with your own hands or creating something with your own hands. Yeah, I like that. I don't think I've ever heard him say that, but that actually, it makes a lot of sense. So let's say me and the listeners, we are coming to one of your retreats. How would you help us shift our energy when we are feeling stuck or in the scarcity mindset? We do have a whole lot of fear, and we feel unworthy to even go after that dream. What would be something we would do or work on with you during a retreat or during a one-on-one session? How would that process work?
Yeah, so there's 2 retreats. Sacred Alchemy is a 4-day portal, and this is where we go into the foundations of unleashing your frequency. Your frequency is your currency to more money, to more wealth, to more fulfillment, to more freedom. And a lot of people don't even know what their frequency feels like, their original blueprint,
Mm,
because we've taken on and we've absorbed the noise of the world, the noise of our parents, the expectations, the shoulds of society, all the things that we don't even know what our frequency feels like. And so we strip you from all the noise and all the stuff on a somatic level, on a mental, physical, spiritual level. And when it comes to your energy, you start to invoke and really be with and learn how to harmonize it and learn how to amplify it and hold it. Because at the end of the day, it's all about containment. Can you hold that frequency? Can you hold it even when you can't see it, even when you don't believe it? Can you hold it? That's faith. And so in Sacred Alchemy, you move and graduate as this embodied alchemist. And in Sacred Magic, which is a 6-day portal, and that one we only offer once a year, this is when we deep dive into mentorship, family constellations, ceremonial. You start to dive deep into relationships, wealth, purpose, and impact. And before you know it, you walk away with a very deeply embodied blueprint within you on what is your path to your freedom.
I like that. Are they virtual or in person or a combo? How does that work?
They're both in person. I do a lot of virtual programs. They're different though. These are more foundational pieces. Like, for example, next week we're doing a master class on how to thrive in this world of AI as feminine leaders. I do a lot of programs that are geared towards awakening that divine, sacred feminine leadership within women so that women can really lead from their frequency, from their authenticity, and have the skill sets on how to advocate for themselves, how to promote themselves, how to create money, how to show up, take up your space.
I love that. It sounds like you have tons of resources, so I will definitely make sure that everybody can link to your website to check all of those out. I'm curious too. Right now, I've been under the assumption we're talking a lot about the adult clients that you have and adult relationships that we're cultivating and building and fixing within ourselves. But you did mention a little bit earlier, or you touched on it, that like as women, we are told to not listen to ourselves and our intuition. We're cut off from that because we're supposed to follow whatever society has been telling us or what our parents have told us or our grandparents or everybody else's expectations except for learning what we want. So, for any of my listeners that might be parents right now who have younger children and they want to help them stay connected to their own frequency or stay connected to their own intuition, is there something parents could do specifically that would help their children? What could they do to help support their children to make sure that they are connected to that divine frequency?
I really believe that as parents, we're reparenting ourselves by how we parent our children. There's a part of us that the moment we have these little babies, there's an inner child in us that's healing in this relationship. And so it's such a tricky dance to instill values and hold standards. But children will only learn by how you model your own life, by how you make yourself a priority, your well being a priority, by how you actually stick to your own inner work of alignment, integrity, embodiment. And the more you model how you move through life, how you move through your problems, and it's not to parentify this child,
Mhm.
but to get curious about them as their own individuals on their own unique path. What's important to you? What do you like to do? What's alive for you today? What are you struggling with? Hey, let's spend time. Let's go on a walk. Let's do this together. Quality time where you are making intimacy really safe and proper mirroring, where you're being real with them on what are their highlights, but also what are their weaknesses that they get to work on. Not from a place of like, I know better, but hey, if you're open, this is what I see as your mom. This is what I see is possible. This is the direction that you're heading. And I want to say this specifically to the moms. It takes a woman to raise a boy, but it takes a man to raise a man. And as women, we get to understand the difference. We cannot, if you're in a divorce situation, you cannot talk negative about the other, because that child is a product of you both. And you talking crap about their dad or their mom is just feeding their own inner self worth. And so understanding that there are parts that we both play as mom and dad, and that if dad isn't involved, you got to get men around this man in the making to really become the fire and the soundboard to support him in up leveling in his manhood.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice and difficult, right? I'm not married and I don't have kids, so I can't even imagine the process of trying to go through a divorce and having a difficult marriage where that comes up often. You know, I did have a lot of friends growing up who came out of homes in that situation, and you could definitely see that the kids would do the best that they could not to let it affect them, but you know that it does. I think that's really, really sage advice. So I appreciate you sharing that with us. We are coming up on our hour, but I would love to ask you our final like core questions. These are the ones that I ask every guest, to try and collect my own data on everybody. But first one is, what do you want out of life, and have you found what you're looking for?
Such a great question. I am on a mission to create a life of deep fulfillment and wealth on all levels. My desire is that my life is like a testimony of what's possible, and that when women look at my life and how I live my life, they say, why not me? If Michelle can do it, I can too. And so I'm on a mission of global impact where we create young millionaires living their dreams, serving the world, serving God. And so I feel like I've reached a certain level in it, but the Capricorn in me is always after that bigger mountain. And so I feel like I'm in this duality of learning how to fully receive everything I've created and soften in it,
Mm,
and also holding the duality of my deepest desires, which is that global impact and that meaningful life of deep fulfillment. And so I feel like I'm always in this like duality, one step forward, one step forward.
yeah, that's good. I like that. What would you say has been your greatest achievement?
I would say it's twofold. It's my relationship with God. It's unwavering. It has brought me and through some of the hardest moments in my life. And I would also say it's my relationship with my family, my husband and my kids. There was a time where if you would have asked me this a couple of years ago, I would have never said that. And so I feel like I've turned my family, my relationship with my family inside out, and I've allowed myself to create something that I feel like my little girl has been dreaming about.
It's wonderful. I'm
Yeah,
glad that
thank
you were able to get to that place, right? I'm sure it took a lot of effort and a lot of time and a lot of faith, and I'm very happy for you. That's wonderful.
you.
How do you define success, and what does success look like to you?
Success to me is loving your life and loving the person you see in the mirror, like feeling so comfortable in your skin, feeling like every day is a masterpiece, feeling like what you're up to is so meaningful and important to you that it has you come alive. Success is also the simplicity, like of seeing beauty in every moment, feeling the beauty in every moment, seeing the magic in every moment, fully receiving the magic in every moment. What it looks like to me, it's that. It really is what I just described. It's like loving my life and using my life as a huge offering of what's possible when you lead with God.
If you could give yourself advice 10 years ago, what would it be?
Woo, girl, chill. Chill the fuck out.
Well, it's all of us need to chill just a little. It would help get a lot more done.
Yeah, I would say relax.
Yeah.
You've already won.
Mhm.
You're alive, you're living, you're creating. Slow down, allow yourself to enjoy it.
Mhm.
Like, really relax in what you've created.
Okay, that's good. And we should all do a little bit of that. So we'll take that in today. And then finally, what advice would you give to someone or a client that approached you who feels really stuck with where they are, or they're kind of lost and looking for meaning in their life, or they're just really afraid to step into that divine purpose? What advice would you give to this person?
Shameless plug, but hire me.
Sure, that's fine.
I would say learn the value of investing in yourself. Learn the value of really investing in yourself. And a lot of people say they don't have money, but when you look at their bank account, you'll see where their values really have been. It's in Amazon purchases, fast food, the latest shoes, the latest bag, things that honestly will be expired by the next trend. And so it's like learn to understand that the most important asset that you have is you, your energy, your mindset, your relationship with God.
Yeah. Yeah. And my my agent right now for podcasting, he'll bring up opportunities and he says the exact same thing, that like, Amanda, I wouldn't have offered this to you if I didn't believe you deserved to invest in yourself. And this is how you have to look at it. I know it sounds scary and this is an opportunity you didn't think you would get for a very long time, but I want you to say yes to this. And it's been really hard. I've been slowly unclenching into that. And I'm kind of like, okay, sure, I'll make this money back. I'll make this money back. I'll make this money back. And
You raised such a great point
yeah.
because if he didn't see the potential in you, he wouldn't have offered it to you.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people get turned off when someone approaches them with an offer, but it's because they see the potential in you.
Yeah.
And sometimes God works in mysterious ways. Not only do I believe that you're going to triple it, you're going to tenfold it if you really lock in and you give it your all.
Oh yeah, and the goal is to do that eventually. Like that, I'd like to be on my own at some point and solopreneur it, very similar to what you're doing with just finding a way to turn this platform into something that helps more people beyond just listening. But it takes a lot of time, and when you're doing all of it on your own, it's very intimidating to figure out how to scale and where do I put all my focus and what am I doing here. But you're not wrong. You're not. Yeah, it's just going to take a little more time to get it where it needs to be.
You're worth it. You're worth all the time, all the time.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate this so much. I've had such a wonderful time talking to you. I could keep talking to you for hours, especially if we went down more of the divine rabbit hole there to connect, because I have a lot of stories about my own intuitive thoughts and like my inner knowing and what it's been telling me over the last few years. And it's all been true because it's all come to fruition on the podcast in and of itself. So I know it's not wrong, but still practicing how to connect to it and listen to it for the right things at the right time has been interesting. It's a new skill I'm reconnecting to, so I appreciate you being here. Please let
Um,
everybody know how they can find you, or if they want to work with you, hire you, go to one of your retreats. What do we do? How do we support you?
Absolutely. The best place to find me is on Instagram, michellegiovanni.com, or on Facebook. Just send me a message. If you want to go on my website, go and check out some of our different offers. We're actually revamping the retreat page, so it's not fully up yet. But if you have any questions on the retreat, definitely message me on either of my social media platforms. And if any of your listeners feel called to really connect with me, they can send me a message and I'm going to send them a blueprint on how to thrive in this AI world.
Oh yeah, no, that'd be great. Yeah, to go do your masterclass. Yes, wonderful. Okay, everybody, I will make sure to put all of that into the show notes and description box. If you're listening on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, please be sure to leave us a 5-star review, comments, like, share with your friends. Let us know what you love from the show. If you have any comments for us directly, leave them there. We'll make sure to send any questions back to Michelle that you might have. And you can find us everywhere at Podcast for the Lost, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. You can also email me, hello@podcastforthelost.com, if you want to connect on becoming a guest or sponsor the show. Just reach out and we will catch you next week. And remember, wanderers are always welcome.